The Imam Rida alayhi salam would also mention, Inna yawm al-Hussain akhrajahu funana wa asbaladu anunana wa awrathina al-karbal wal-bala fi yawmi karbal wal-bala. The day of Hussain is a day of oppression, is a day in which our rights were violated, and in the land of Karbala he would ascend upon the pulpit. Imam Rida alayhi salam. Some people, they ask us, they say, why do you mourn Aba Abdullah? We respond to them in two ways. The first way is that Aba Abdullah was the grandson of Rasulullah. Aba Abdullah was the one who Rasulullah would mention, if there's anything worth loving in this world, it's my two beautiful grandsons Hassan and Hussein. Aba Abdullah is the one who Rasulullah would mention, Hassan and Hussein are the masters of the youth of paradise. The second thing we say to them is that Imam Al-Hussain was killed in a way in which nobody was ever killed. Imam Al-Rida would ascend upon the pulpit and he would say, Inna Jaddi Al-Hussain dubihud Jahannam. He says, my grandfather, he wasn't just killed, my grandfather was slaughtered while he was thirsty. Imam Al-Hujjat ibn Al-Hasan, on this day, he says that the grief is so much that because time did not permit me to be with you, Ya Aba Abdullah, instead of tears, I will cry and cry and cry until I weep fresh blood from my eyes. And then he would say, peace be upon the one who was buried by the strangers from the villages. Peace be upon the one whose aorta was severed. Peace be upon the defender who had no helper. Peace be upon the grey hair that was dyed with blood. Peace be upon the cheek that struck the dust. Peace be upon the butchered body. Peace be upon the front teeth that were beaten with a rod. Peace be upon the head that was raised upon a lance. The following is a brief description of the events which took place on the day of Ashura. The Imam on the day of Ashura started by praising Allah as he saw that the enemy were intent on fighting him. He then put his hands to the sky and mentioned, O Allah, you are my haven in every mishap, my hope in every predicament, my refuge and defender in every ordeal. How many a distress that weakens the heart, makes the enemies rejoice at the misfortune. When I entrusted it to you out of preference over others, you did not let me down and had driven away and eliminated all these distressing things. You are the giver of every boon and the ultimate source of every wish to be granted. Convinced about the enemy's determination to fight him, he addressed his enemies by saying, Glory be to Allah and woe unto you. You pledged allegiance and believe in Rasulullah, then ganged up against his progeny, intent on killing them. Shaitan has truly taken hold over you, participating you to forget the remembrance of Allah. May evil befall you and may your aspiration come to nothing. From Allah we come and unto Him we return. O people, track back my lineage and relate to me and consider who I am. Then look back and remonstrate with yourselves. Consider whether it is right for you to kill me and encroach upon my integrity. Am I not the son of your prophet's daughter? Am I not the son of your prophet's cousin and successor? Was the master of martyrs Hamza not my uncle? Was Ja'far al-Tayyar not my uncle? Have you not heard the tradition of Rasulullah concerning my brother and I? Hassan and Hussein are the masters of the youth of paradise. Whether you believe in what I say and it is the truth, for I swear by Allah I have never told a lie since I learned that Allah hated them who tell them, or you regard me as a liar, and I choose to believe in my choose not to believe in my statement, there are amongst you who you can ask them, who you can trust. Ask Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, Zayd ibn Arqam and Anas ibn Malik to tell you that they have heard these words from the Messenger of Allah in favor of my brother and my. Is this not sufficient, a sufficient deterrent in this to prevent you from shedding my blood? The Imam then looked at the enemy. He pointed at them one by one. He called out the names of some of those present, saying, O Shabath ibn Rabi, O Hajar ibn Abjar, O Qais ibn al-Ash'ath, O Yazid ibn al-Harith, did you not write to me saying the fruit was ripened, the dates are ready for picking? Come to the army which has been gathered for you in Kufa. They replied to him. Qais ibn al-Ash'ad said, we don't know what you are talking about. Why don't you submit to the authority of Bani Umayyah? They have never treated you badly. They have never done to you what you have not liked. The Imam replied with his famous line, by Allah, I will never give you my hand like a humiliated man, nor will I flee like a slave. At this moment, whilst the enemy were riding like a torrent, Muslim ibn Awsaja came to the Imam and they organized their army. They put Zuhair ibn al-Qayn on the left flank. They put Habib ibn Madahir on the right flank. And he gave the standard to his brother Abbas, who would attack from the middle. Muslim ibn Awsaja came to the Imam. He said to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, our numbers are small, so shall we start off the fight to get an advantage? Aba Abdullah said to him, O Muslim, we are the family of Rasulullah. We are the ones who adhere to the religion of Islam. By God, we will never start a war and we will only defend ourselves. At this moment, Umar ibn Sa'ad, he threw an arrow. He fired an arrow in the army of Imam Al-Hussain and he said, Ishhaduni and al-Amir, bear witness with the Emir that I was the first to shoot. The arrows then came down like rain upon the companions of Imam Al-Hussain. Imam Al-Hussain looked towards his companions. He said to them, Qumi rahikumullah ila al-mawt alladhi la budda min. Hadhihi as-sihad Rasulul Qawmi alaykum. He said, O companions, rise from certain death, for Allah has destined that you and I will be killed today. The arrows then came down like rain and the dust had risen up. They started the first attack on Aba Abdullah's camp. As the dust settled, 30 of the companions of Imam Al-Hussain were killed in the first ambush. The camp of Aba Abdullah was broken in the first ambush. At this point, the remaining companions went forward one by one to defend the son of Zahra and were killed one after the other until it came to the family of Aba Abdullah. The first to come forward was his son Ali al-Akbar. Imam al-Sadiq says, Imam al-Sadiq says, the most joyous thing in this world is for you to have a child and teach that child akhlaq, teach that child who their Lord is, and to see that child walk in front of you at the age of 18, at the age of 21, and to see how great this child is. Ali al-Akbar came to his father, asking his father for permission to go fight. Aba Abdullah for the first time gave him permission instantly. He said, instead of saying no to him, he placed his hands towards Allah and said to him, O Allah, you bear witness over me that I am sending a youth upon them who there is nobody like your Prophet in both his character and the way he looks. Ali al-Akbar, he told him, before you go out and fight, bid farewell to your family members. He went to his aunt Zainab, he went to his mother Layla, he went to his sister Ruqayya. They all hugged Ali al-Akbar and they began to weep. They called out to Ali al-Akbar. They said, "Oh Ali, who do you leave us with?" One was holding his leg, another was holding his other leg, another was holding his shoulder, and another was holding his neck. They could not bear to see Ali al-Akbar leave them for the final time. At this point, Imam Al-Hussain came in. He took Ali's hand and took him to the battlefield. Ali al-Akbar then went to fight. As he went into the battlefield, he called out his famous lines, "Anna Ali ibn al-Hussain ibn Ali, wa nahnu Baytullahi awlad bin Nabi." He said, "I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. We are the house of Rasulullah. By God, we shall never give our hand to an illegitimate tyrant like Yazid. I raise my sword to protect my father." Ali al-Akbar was fighting very valiantly, that every man who would come to him was killed by his sword. Imam al-Hussain was watching while he was smiling, seeing his beautiful son in front of him. As he was smiling, he began to frown. Layla asked him, he said, "What is happening, Ya Aba Abdullah?" Aba Abdullah said to him, "Oh Layla, I can see a man coming from behind, and this man will cause him a problem. If you want to see your son again, go in towards the tent and pray to Allah." Layla went into the tent. As she went in, she raised her arms to the heavens and she said, "Oh Allah, the one who brought Yusuf back to Yaqub, oh Allah, I invoke you by the suffering of Aba Abdullah. I invoke you by the thirst of Aba Abdullah. Please bring me back my son Ali al-Akbar." Ali then fought this enemy and he returned to his father. He then said to his father, "Oh father, the heat is getting to me. The armor is making me sweat. Can you give me a drop of water, oh father?" Aba Abdullah said to him, "Ya Bunayya Ali, I have nothing to give you." Bunayya Ali, I have no drink of water to give you. But one thing I can give you is that I can tell you in a few moments' time, you will meet your grandfather Rasulullah, and he will give you a drink of water from a cup in which you will never be thirsty again. Ali al-Akbar then went out into the battlefield for the final time. As he was fighting, a man said to his fellow companions, he said to them, "May I be the one who causes his father to weep over him." He came up behind him. Murrat ibn Munkid approached Ali al-Akbar and he struck Ali on his sacred head, causing his head to fall onto the horse. The horse, not being able to see because the blood was covering his eyes, took Ali to the enemy's camp. Rahimullah man ada wa aliya wa akbara ya ibn Abi Abdullah. He took Ali to the enemy's camp. They began striking him in every direction. Ali screamed so his father could hear him. He said, "Aba alayka minni salam, fahada jaddi Rasulullah, faqad saqani bakas al-awfa." When Abbas fell, he said, "Adrikni ya akha." When Qasim fell, he said, "Adrikni ya ammi." When Ali fell, he said, in other words, "Don't worry about me any longer. Alayka minni salam, fahada jaddi Rasulullah." For I can see my grandfather Rasulullah, faqad saqani biqasah al-awfa, and he has given me a drink in which I will never again be thirsty. And oh father, he's telling me to tell you something. Brothers and sisters, when your father in his last moments, you wish to tell him something that will make him feel a bit happier in these last moments. In this situation, the role is reversed. Ali al-Akbar knows that he won't be there in Aba Abdullah's final moment. So he says to Aba Abdullah that Rasulullah is telling me to tell you that there is a cup waiting for you. وحسينا. Aba Abdullah, he rushed towards Ali al-Akbar. The Maqtal says that Sukaina said to him, where are you going, O father? Ali al-Akbar is in the other direction. Aba Abdullah says, do not blame me, O my sweet daughter, for the loss of Ali has caused me to lose my sight. The Maqtal says, as he approached Ali al-Akbar, he didn't alight from the back of his horse. Instead, he threw himself from the horse onto the body of Ali. He threw himself onto the body of Ali al-Akbar. He then cried out, Bunayya Ali ala dunya ba'dak al-afa. Oh my sweet son Ali, this world is not worth living after you. At this moment Zainab came out. Zainab never came out when Aud and Muhammad were killed, but she came out when Ali was killed. She said, Bunay, she said, Wa Aliya, Wa Akbara, for giving support to Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah took the bodies of Habib ibn Madahir. Aba Abdullah took the bodies of John. He took the bodies of Abbas. He took the body of Muslim ibn Awsaja. But with the body of Ali al-Akbar, he couldn't take this body. Instead, he called out, Ya Shabab Bani Hashim, O youth of Bani Hashim, come and carry the body of Ali al-Akbar back to the camp. Hamid ibn Muslim says that at this point, this was the first time we saw Hussein crying out loudly. Allahu Akbar. And he took the body back to the camp, and as he took it back to the camp, he cried out, Ala hal min nasirin yansurna liwajhillah. Is there anyone to come protect the family of Rasulullah? To which a young boy came out of his tent saying, Labbayka ya ammi, I am at your service, O my uncle. It was Qasim ibn al-Hasan. When Qasim came for permission, Aba Abdullah for the first time, he flatly refused, saying, La, ya ibn akhi, oh my nephew Al-Qasim, how can I give you permission? You are the orphan of my brother. Qasim began to weep. He went out of the tent and he remembered his father gave him a letter at his deathbed. His same father who said to Aba Abdullah, La yawmak yawmak ya Aba Abdullah. He took the letter and gave it to Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah read the letter. It said, Oh Hussein, a day will come when you need to give your life for this religion, and I will not be there with you. Ya Al-Hussain, how a brother, an elder brother wants to be with his younger brother. Yet Al-Hassan knows he won't be there. So instead, I will not be there with you, but allow my son Al-Qasim to represent me. He then took Al-Qasim. He didn't give him any armor, for he was so young that armor would not fit him. Instead, he took his turban. He cut it into half and then cut it into half again. He put a quarter of his turban round Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan to use as armor, and another quarter of the turban to use as a helmet. As Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan went into the battlefield, he recited his famous words. The individuals didn't know who he was. They said, did we not just kill the son of Al-Hussain? Did we not just kill Ali al-Akbar? So Al-Qasim cried out, In tunkiruni fa'ana najlu al-Hasan. In tunkiruni fa'ana najlu al-Hasan. Najsibtu al-Nabi al-Mustafa wal-Mu'tanan. Hada al-Hussain He said, if you do not know me, know that I am the son of Hassan, the son of Rasulullah. This is Hussein, who you treat like a captive in the desert of Karbala. Al-Qasim the Maqtal says, he didn't walk towards the battlefield. Instead, he sprinted towards it. A youth who was in love with death for Aba Abdullah. He was fighting very bravely until a man said to Hamid ibn Muslim, he said, may the curse of the Arabs be upon me if I don't make his uncle weep over him. He said, do you not see his face shining like the moon? Why don't you just let someone else kill him? He said, no, I must do this so I get rewarded by the Emir. Al-Qasim, they say, not a care in the world. He was fighting until his sandal slipped, so he bent down to fix it. As he bent down to fix it, Amr ibn Sa'd al-Asadi came from behind and he struck Al-Qasim on his head. This young boy cried out. He said, Labbay, he said, Adrikni ya Ammi, come to my rescue, O my uncle. Imam Al-Hussain heard Al-Qasim. He came to him right like a hawk coming to its prey. As he came to him, he cried out to Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan. He said to him, it is painful for your uncle that you call unto me and he cannot respond, or I call unto you and you cannot hear me. He then cried out, O my cousins, O my nephews, forbear in adversity, for you shall never taste disgrace after today. The Maqtal says, as Al-Hussain brought Al-Qasim's body back to the camp, Al-Hussain was someone who took adult men back to the camp. But why was it, the Maqtal says, that this young boy's arms and legs were dragging in the sand? Because Abba Abdullah's back was now bent by the death of Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan. As he took the body of Al-Qasim back to the camp, he put it next to the body of Ali Al-Akbar, Allahu Akbar. As Abbas saw the death toll rising, he then ordered his brothers Abdullah, Uthman and Ja'far to enter the battlefield. They all went and were killed one by one until there was only Abbas and Abba Abdullah left in the camp. Abbas asked for permission to go fight. Abba Abdullah said to him, O Abbas, you are the backbone of my army. O Abbas, as long as I have you, I know that I have someone with me. Abbas said to him, Ya Sayyidi, Ya Mawlai, there is nobody left in this army. I am tired of these hypocrites that they have killed my nephew Ali. They have killed my nephew Al-Qasim. He said to him, O Abbas, if you must, then go and get some water for the thirsty children, for I can hear them crying out, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. Abul Fadl al-Abbas then entered the battlefield saying, Anna Abbas ibn Ali, Anna al-Haydari. I am Abbas, the son of Ali. It is as if I am Haydar. They all saw him approaching and they all dispersed at once. Abbas got to the river Euphrates. He took a step inside of it as to show the enemy that I own this river today. As he went inside, he put some water, he cupped some water in his hands, and then he cried out his famous words, Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Hussain huni, wa ba'dahu ma kunti aw takuni, hada al-Hussain al-warid al-manuni, wa tashrabina barid al-ma'ini. He said, Oh my soul, what are you after Hussein? Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Hussain huni. He said, who am I that I must drink the water while Hussein is still thirsty? He threw the water back into the river Euphrates. They say that Abbas didn't drink the water, he was tempted by the water. I say no, he was never tempted by the water. He did this action to show the enemy that I own this river on this day, but by God I will never drink it before Hussein. Abul Fadl al-Abbas then put the water in his water carrier. He got upon his horse. At this point Umar ibn Sa'd called out. He said, do not let him go back to the camp, for if Abbas and Hussein drink a drop of water, then our entire army is finished. They then hid behind the trees, and Abbas was approaching one of the trees. Allahu Akbar. They severed the right hand of Abbas. Wa Abbas wa Sayyida. He cried out, Wallahi inqata'tuhu al-yamini, inni uhami abdan an dini, wa imam sadiq al-yaqini, lajl al-nabi al-tahir al-amini. He said, you may sever my arm, but but I will always defend my brother and the religion of Islam. When a man has his arm severed, he begins to scream, he stops in his track, but Abbas keeps on going because he has an objective to fulfill. Abbas carries on going until another man came from behind and he severed the left arm of Abul Fadl al-Abbas. Abbas cried out, Ya nafsu la taqshay min al-kuffari wa abshiri bi rahmat al-jabbari qad qata'u bi baghihim yasari fa aslihim ya Rabb hal yahnari. He said, O soul, do not be taken aback by the actions of the kuffar. O soul, know that they are entering the hellfire and never stop in your objective. Abbas carried on going to the camp of Imam Al-Hussain until something happened to Abu Fadl al-Abbas. وَسَحْمٌ أَصَابَ الْصَدْرَ, an arrow pierced his chest. وَسَحْمٌ أَصَابَ الْعَيْنَ, an arrow pierced the eye. وَسَحْمٌ أَصَابَ الْقَرْبَ, an arrow pierced the water container. And the Maqtal says this is one of the most painful moments in Ashura. فَوَقَفُ الْعَبَّاسُ مُطَهِرًا, Abbas stood perplexed. Abbas stood in his spot. He stopped going back to the camp. Why did Abbas not carry on? Because Abbas had no eye to see with. Abbas had no arm to fight with. And he had no water to take back to the thirsty children. The Maqtal says that Abbas, he lowered his head to take the arrow out of his eye with his thighs until his armor it showed a piece of his head. A wicked man came from behind and he struck Abbas with an iron rod. The full moon of Bani Hashim was shattered on the day of Ashura. Abbas's head was shattered. He fell from his horse. When a person falls from their horse, they use their arms to protect their fall. Abbas has no arms. What does Abbas have to protect his fall? He has an arrow in his eye. For the first time in Karbala, we hear that when Abbas and Aba Abdullah would communicate, Abbas would say, Yabna Rasulallah. Imam Al-Hussain would say, Yabna Amir Al-Mu'mineen. Abbas would say, Yabna Fatima Zahra. They would communicate like this to know each other is okay. But what is it that made Aba Abdullah here for the first time? Akhi, adrikni akha. Brother, come to the rescue of your brother. Aba Abdullah, he comes to the body of Abbas. Abbas says to the man, he doesn't know who it is, there's blood in his eye. He says, oh man, in whatever God that you believe in, I ask you to spare me for a few moments so I can send my salams to Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah says to him, Ya Abbas, it is your brother Hussain. Abbas says to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, do not take my body back to the camp. Why, O Abbas? For I cannot bear to see Ruqayya and Suqayna without any water. Aba Abdullah then cries out, Ya Abbas al-an biqasra dahli wa qarlat hilati al-an shumu'i aduwi. He said that my back is now broken and the enemies rejoice after you. Why was he saying this? For the enemies got in a circle around Aba Abdullah and they began clapping their hands, saying, we have now killed the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. We have now killed Abu Fadl al-Abbas. Allahu Akbar. Imam Al-Hussain then put the head of Abbas in his lap. Abbas removed his head. He did this 3 times, to which Aba Abdullah said, Oh Abbas, why is it that you do this? He said, at this moment I have the comfort comfort of having my head in your lap, but in an hour's time, Ya Aba Abdullah, whose head will they have in your lap? Who would put your head in their lap? Ya Abul Fadl Abbas, maybe it was a good thing that you never saw what they did to Aba Abdullah in the last moments of his life. Aba Abdullah, he came back to the camp. At this point, they all cried out, where is my uncle Abbas? Wa'ina ammi al-Abbas? Aba Abdullah, not being able to speak, so he went to the tent of Abbas and removed the pillar, as if to say, Abbas will not be coming back. Abbas's body is left at the Euphrates River. Abbas, Ya Abbas. Zainab came out of the camp. She then started beating her head, saying, Wadayatna ba'dak Ya Abul Fadl. What a loss it is after you, Ya Abul Fadl. Imam Al-Hussain, what does he do to comfort the women and children? He joins them and starts beating his head, saying, Wadayatna ba'dak Ya Abul Fadl. It is a loss without you, Ya Abul Fadl. Aba Abdullah is all alone now. He looks left and right, only to see his companions slaughtered like sacrificial lambs. He then goes to the tent where the bodies of his companions are. He goes into it and he says to them all, O my companions, arise if you are awake and come and protect the daughters of Rasulullah, for they need protecting. He then says to them, if you are not arising, then surely you have done your favor and Allah has Jannah ready for you. He then cried out with a sad voice, looking at each of them, Ya Habib ibn Madahir, Ya Hur al-Riyahi, Ya Zuhair ibn al-Qain, Ya Muslim ibn Awsaja, Ya Muslim ibn Aqil, where are you today? He said all of this. Imam al-Baqir says, by God, when he said their names, their dead bodies began to shiver as he called out their names. Aba Abdullah then went to his son Ali al-Akbar, who was lying next to Al-Qasim ibn al-Hasan. He lied down between them and he closed his eyes for a moment to feel the comfort of being with his two sons. Allahu Akbar. Aba Abdullah then went out of the tent and he cried out, Ala hal min nasirin yansurna li wajhillah, ala hal min da'bin yadubbu an haram Rasul Allah. What nobody replied. The only thing Aba Abdullah could hear was the cry from a cradle. He said to his sister Zainab, bring my son Abdullah to me, for he is thirsty and maybe I can get a few drops of water for him. Zainab brought Abdullah al-Radi to Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah changed his clothes. He took all his armor off. He took the tallest camel so they could all see him atop the camel. As he went into the battlefield, he covered Abdullah with his cloak. The enemy say, we did not know what Al-Hussain was doing. We thought maybe he was carrying a Quran, maybe he was carrying a weapon, until he released his cloak and they showed the shining neck of Abdullah al-Radi. He then says to the enemy, he says to them, O enemy, you have killed my companions, you have killed me. Maybe you say you have a reason to kill us, but what reason do you have to kill this infant? If you do not give him a drop of water, he will surely die. At this point, enemies of Aba Abdullah, some of them said we should give them water. Others said we have been instructed to not give this camp any water, to the point where some took out their swords, threatening if they don't give them water they would fight one another. At this point, Umar ibn Sa'ad went to his chief archman. He went to Harmala al-Qahil. He went to him and said, Ya Harmala, put an end to this fight, put an end to this issue that is happening. He says to Ya Umar ibn Sa'ad, where shall I launch my arrow? Shall I launch it at the father or shall I launch it at the son? Umar ibn Sa'ad says, He says, launch it to the point that will stop all the bickering in the army. Harmala raises an arrow in his arch. He's about to shoot and then he drops it. He raises the arrow again. He begins about to shoot, he drops it. He does this a third time. When Maqtal caught Harmala, he asked him, why did you do this? Harmala said, every time I was about to relaunch the arrow, I saw a woman beating her head as if to try and distract me from killing her son. Harmala puts an arrow in his arch. It's not a normal arrow, it's a three-pronged arrow. It's an arrow used to kill a beast. Allahu Akbar. You know how small an infant is. You know how small a 6-month infant is. What was the crime this infant committed? He puts the arrow in his arch. He launches it towards Aba Abdullah. In that 1 or 2 seconds, Aba Abdullah can do nothing to stop the arrow. Instead, watch the arrow pierce his infant's neck. The arrow comes and pierces the jugular vein of Abdullah Radi. Allahu Akbar. One rawayah says it separates the head of Abdullah from his body. The arrow goes through the head and into the arm of Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah at this moment was about to die of grief. So the heavens consoled him. The heavens, a voice came from them saying, Da'hu ya Hussain, da'hu, فَإِنَّ لَهُ مُرْضِعَةٌ جَنَّةٌ. He said, let him go, O Hussein, let him go. For there is a maid waiting for him in Jannah. Allahu Akbar. Who is the maid waiting for Aba Abdullah? Is it Fatima Zahra waiting for him, who will be rocking his cradle with one hand and holding her broken rib with the other? Allahu Akbar. Aba Abdullah, he then takes the blood, he dyes his beard with it and throws the blood to the heavens. Imam Al-Baqir says, by God, not a single drop of that blood came back down to the earth. Aba Abdullah looks to the heavens and says to Allah, Wa inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To you we come, from you we come, and to you do we return. He then says to Allah, take this blood and keep taking until you are satisfied with our sacrifice. Aba Abdullah then says, Hawana nazla binahu bi'ayn Allah. What makes this calamity easier for me is that I know Allah is watching every second of it. He then takes 7 steps forward, and then he takes a few steps back. He takes a few steps forward, and then goes back. He does this 7 times. Ya Aba Abdullah, why do you do this 7 times? Is it because you don't know how to tell Rubab that her son has been slaughtered? Rubab, who has one son who is 6 months, another daughter who is 3 years. How would she think? In what world would she think I would lose both my children in Karbala? He goes back to the camp. As he goes back to the camp, his daughter Ruqayya comes. She says, Ya Aba Abdullah, did they give my brother a drink of water? Ya Aba Abdullah, do you have a remaining piece of water for the rest of us to drink? Aba Abdullah says, your brother has been martyred. Your brother has been killed. Aba Abdullah goes behind the tent and he digs a grave for Abdullah Radi. As he digs the grave, he then puts Aba Abdullah in the grave as if to say that I know the heads of all my companions will be taken, but I want my son Abdullah. I don't want anything to happen to his body after me. Ya Aba Abdullah, we all know what happened. Where they came to the grave afterwards, they dug their swords in it as if to remove the head of Abdullah. Allahu Akbar. Aba Abdullah was now truly alone. He then called out, Ala hal min nasirin yansurana li wajhillah, ala hal min da'bin yadubbu an haramin Rasulullah. There was no response from anybody. So then he went to the tent of his son Imam Zainul Abidin. فدخل الحسين إلى خيمة زين العابدين وهو يشخب دماء. It says he entered the tent, he had blood gushing from every wound over his body. Allahu Akbar. In Ziyarat al-Nahiya, there is a special line the Imam recites. He says, indeed the angels of the heavens were astonished by your patience, Ya Allah. As if to say that the angels, the heavens were in disarray. The angels were striking themselves. They were saying, how can a man have such patience? How can a man lose his son, his nephew, his brother, his 6-month-old infant, and still say to Allah, keep taking until you are satisfied, Ya Allah. He goes into the tent of his son, Imam Sajjad. Imam Sajjad looks at his father. He says to him, O father, wa ayna Habib ibn Madahar? He says, Habib has been killed. He says, wa ayna akhi Ali al-Akbar? Ali has been killed. He says, wa ayna ibn Ammi al-Qasim? Where is Qasim? Qasim has been killed. He then says, Inni ara fiqun khisar. Ya Aba Abdullah, there is a broken thing about you. Is it true? Is it possible? وَأَيْنَ أَمِّي الْعَبَّاسِ? Where is my uncle Abbas? He says to him, Ya Bunayya Ali, Abbas is at the river Euphrates. Abbas's body is at the river Euphrates and his arms are scattered across Karbala. He then says to him, Ya Imam, oh my son Ali, you are now the Imam after me, and have a lot of patience, for Allah will test you with many things to come. He then got up and dragged his sword in the sand. He could barely walk. He had his walking stick in the other hand. And then Imam Al-Hussain said to Zainab, Ya Zainab, sit him down, for if he is killed, the lineage of Ali Muhammad will be severed. He then said, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam was then crying in his tent, for there was nothing the Imam could do to support his father. Imam Al-Hussain, he then tore his clothes. He changed into some torn clothes. He asked Zainab to bring him his horse. The reason he changed into these torn clothes was so that the enemy would not steal his clothes and leave his body naked in the battlefield. He then asked Zainab to bring him his horse. Zainab said to him, Oh brother, who is the one who brings the horse of death to their brother? Abba Abdullah says, Ya Ukhti, Ya Zainab, be patient, for there will be many trials and tribulations coming after me. Abba Abdullah alights on top of his horse. As he's about to go back into the battlefield, he hears a faint voice from behind, Mahlan Mahla Ibn Zahra. Slowly, oh son of Fatima. Why does Zainab use the word son of Fatima? Why does she not say, oh my brother? Because she knows this is one way Abba Abdullah will not be able to refuse. Abba Abdullah turns around. He goes to Zainab. Abba Abdullah was only 4 years old when he saw his mother crushed between the door. Zainab says, Ya Aba Abdullah, our mother asked me to do something on this day. He said, what is it? She then kissed the forehead of Aba Abdullah. She kissed the chest of Aba Abdullah. She kissed the neck of Aba Abdullah. She then looked towards Medina and she said, Oh Mother Fatima, I have done what you have instructed me to do. Why the forehead? Is it because this was the place that Abu Hatuf al-Ju'fi will throw the stone to Aba Abdullah? Why the chest? Was this the chest where Aba Abdullah's body would be trampled upon? And why the neck? Because is this the neck which Shimr bin Daljoshin would sever? Aba Abdullah, as he goes into the battlefield, there is another girl coming from behind, one of the daughters of one of the companions of Aba Abdullah. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, I am looking for my father. My father said he would go get us some water, but he has not returned. Allahu Akbar. Nobody wants Aba Abdullah to go. They're all stopping him one by one. She says to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, I don't know where my father is. Aba Abdullah says to her, I am going on a journey in which I will meet your father, and I will tell your father your complaints you have. She says to him, Ya Aba Abdullah, if that is the case, then why can't you take me with you so I can see my father? He says, if I take you with me, Ya Bunay, then who will be there to take you back? Aba Abdullah alayhi salam, he then enters the battlefield. This is the final individual in Karbala. He goes towards the battlefield and he cries out, Anna Hussain ibn Ali, I am Hussein the son of Ali. I decided never to bow nor bend, protecting my father's family, remaining on the Prophet's creed. They all looked at him. Anyone who would come towards him was put to death by Hussein's sword. They were all fleeing from him. Abdullah ibn Ammar ibn Yahud says, never have I seen someone surrounded by a huge number of enemies and whose sons are slaughtered, and so are his family and companions, and who still maintained his composure, remained relentless, and stayed courageous more than Hussein. Men kept fleeing in front of him. Whenever he charged at them, nobody would come towards him. He then called out to the enemy, surely death is more worthy than humiliation, and surely humiliation is far better than going to Jahannam. He went down the left flank, he then went down the right flank, and then he went down the flank in which he wanted to go to the river Euphrates. This was the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib. So Umar ibn Sa'd shouted out, this is the son of the one who killed the Arabs. Attack him from all direction. 4,000 arrows came to Aba Abdullah wa Husayna wa Badluma. Al-Hussain, he fended off the arrows. He went to the river Euphrates. At this point he was separated from the women of the children, and then he cried out, Ya Shi'ata Abi Sufyan. O followers of Abi Sufyan, woe unto you if you do not believe in any religion and do not fear the day of Qiyamah, then at least be free in this world. Shimr said to him, what are you saying, O son of Fatima? He said, if you want to kill me, you kill me, but if you are so-called Arabs, at least do not attack my women and children. Aba Abdullah then launched an attack on the river Euphrates. As he went to the river, he got off his horse, he lowered himself into the river. He then looked at his horse and said, you are thirsty and I am thirsty. You are thirsty and I am thirsty. You drink before I drink the water. The horse looked at him in a way as if to say, I will never drink water before you, Ya Aba Abdullah. A man then cried out, Oh Hussein, you're busy with the materialistic things of this world, while your women and children are being attacked. Aba Abdullah went atop of his horse. He rode back to his camp, and then this was the final farewell. He then called out, Ya Zainab, Ya Kulthum, Ya Ruqayya, Ya Rubab, Ya Layla, Hada al-Akhir al-Wada. This is the final farewell. All the women came around Aba Abdullah. They could see how the niche of religion was about to be dislocated. The rope of prophethood was about to be cut off. The lantern of Sharia was about to be put out, and the dream of Imam was about to be withered. Then Aba Abdullah consoled them, saying, I will now go and you will never see me again. At this point, Sukaina came to her father. She said to him, oh father, can you have a moment with me? She said, Ya Sukaina, of course I have a moment with you. She said, oh father, whenever an individual would die, I saw you going to the orphan and putting your hand on their forehead. Oh father, can you do that for me now? For I know that you will go and you will never return, and there will be no one who can put their hand on my forehead. Ya Sukaina, instead of having a hand put on your forehead, you have a hand slapping you across the face. You have someone pulling your earrings from your ears. She says, Ya Aba Abdullah, can I lie on your chest for one moment longer? Maybe when Aba Abdullah was being struck, he remembered Sukaina lying on his chest. She lies on his chest, and Aba Abdullah cries out, Sayyidu libadi ya Sukaina fa'lami min qilbuqahu idal imam bihani. He says, do not add anguish to my injured heart, O Sukaina, and do not cry in front of me, but after I am killed, feel free to cry forever. Umar ibn Sa'd then called out, woe unto you, attack him while he was distracted with his women. By Allah, should he direct his full attention to you. The arrows then were rained down upon the tents of Imam Al-Hussain. As the arrows were rained down on the tents of Imam Al-Hussain, all the women and children looked at their master. They looked at their Imam as they were very scared, and they wanted to look at what the Imam would do to respond. Aba Abdullah, he then went on his horse and left the camp into the direction of the enemy. Imam al-Sadiq says, فَحَمَلُوا عَلَيْهِ مِنْ كُلِّ جَانِبٍ 30,000 soldiers were surrounding Abi Abdullah al-Hussain. وَفِرْقَةٌ بِالسِّيُوفِ وَفِرْقَةٌ بِالرَّمَاءِ وَفِرْقَةٌ بِالسِّحَامِ. A group came with their arrows, another came with their spears, another came with their swords, and those who didn't have arrows, they took their rocks. Allahu Akbar. A wicked man by the name of Abu al-Jufi, he didn't have a weapon, so he picked up a rock from his hand and he threw it at the head of Aba Abdullah. He threw it at the head of Aba Abdullah, causing the blood to gush down from his sacred head. Aba Abdullah bent down to wipe the blood from his head, which the Maqtal says was dripping like a pipe. The blood was gushing down. At this moment, Harmala was waiting for his opportunity. So he took a three-pronged arrow. He threw it in the direction of Aba Abdullah's chest. Wa Hussaina! Wa Madluma! Wa Sayyida! Imam al-Hussain then cried out, oh Allah, you see in what condition I am with regard to your servants, the disobedient ones. Oh Allah, decrease their number, kill them, and leave none among them on the face of earth, and do not ever forgive them. Ya Mu'mineen, the Imam was very tired, the Imam was very thirsty, the Imam was weakened by the heat of the desert. فَطَاقَتُ الْحُسَيْنُ مِنَ الْدَهْرِ الْفَرَسِ. فَطَاقَتُ الْحُسَيْنُ مِنَ الْدَهْرِ الْفَرَسِ. Al-Hussain, he didn't fall onto the ground. Al-Hussain didn't alight from the back of his horse. Al-Hussain was thrown onto the ground uncontrollably. The Maqtal says, Aba Abdullah had arrows in every direction on him, that when he fell, his body didn't touch the ground, but the arrows were just deeply embedded in his body. Allahu Akbar. Aba Abdullah, he had the blood, he drained, he dyed his beard with it and looked towards the heavens and said, they are killing a man who there is none other of the son of your prophet's daughter. Allah, you are witness to all of this. Never let them get away with this. Then he called out to the enemy, asking them for a drink of water. He said to them, can I have a drink of water? One man said to him, O Hussain, you will never drink water until you reach the hellfire in which you can drink in it boiling water. Imam Al-Hussain says to him, you are mistaken, for surely I shall meet my grandfather Rasulullah in a seat of honor with the most obedient, with the most powerful king, and I will complain to my grandfather. I will say to him, oh grandfather, so and so killed me. Aba Abdullah was now at a point of his life where he was breathing his last. At this point, his nephew Abdullah ibn al-Hasan was holding the hand of his aunt Zainab. Abdullah released his hand from his aunt's grip and rushed towards Aba Abdullah. Abdullah, he never had a weapon or armor. Instead, he put out his hand. He said to Shema band al-Jawshin, Ya ibn al-Khabitha, ataqtul anni, O son of a wicked woman, do you wish to kill my uncle? They say that Shema, he took his sword and cut his hand, and his hand was dangling from the skin. Abdullah then said, Ya ammi, kat qatul anini, ya uncle, they have severed my arm. Then Aba Abdullah said to him, be patient, O nephew, soon you will be with your uncles and your grandfathers, your father and your grandfathers. At this point, Harmala, he took a three-pronged arrow. Harmala, he took a three-pronged arrow. He used an arrow to kill Abdullah. He was maybe 100 meters away. He used an arrow to strike Abul Fadl al-Abbas. He was maybe 100 meters away. He used an arrow to strike Imam Al-Hussain. He was maybe 100 meters away. With Abdullah ibn al-Hasan, the Maqtal says he was 5 or 6 meters away from him. He launched the arrow into Abdullah's chest, causing him to fall onto Aba Abdullah. The arrow went through him into the chest of Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah said to him, Ya, oh my nephew, you shall now meet your father and your grandfathers. Aba Abdullah alayhi salam, he was now on the brink of dying, and then he cried out, by my grandfather, I am thirsty. A man said to him, O Hussain, do you not see the river of the Euphrates flowing like the belly of a snake? By God, you will never drink this water. The wild animals drink the water before you, Ya Hussain. A man says, I came to kill him. He looked me in the eye, and I saw the eyes of Rasulullah. They were all relying on one another to kill him. Nobody had the courage to kill Imam Al-Hussain. At this point, they sent a Christian man to him, someone who never knew about Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah said to him that do you not know in your Bible, it speaks about a prophet that is coming. It speaks about a special family. Know that I am the individual mentioned in the Bible. He said, Ya Aba Abdullah, I will protect you until my dying breath. Nobody could come and finish off Aba Abdullah alayhi salam. Umar ibn Sa'd is now approaching the scene as Aba Abdullah is on the point of death. Hamid ibn Muslim says, I was standing in front of Hussain as he was drawing his last breath. Never did I ever see anyone whose face looked better than him or more glowing as he was stained with his own blood. In fact, the light emanating from his face distracted me altogether from the thought of killing him. As he was in such a condition, he asked for some water to drink, but they refused to give him any. Imam Al-Hussain alayhi salam then said, grant me to Allah, grant me patience to bear your destiny, Ya Allah. There is no God but you, O helper of those who seek help. فَجَوْدَ تَعْنَ فَوْقَ الْتَعْنَ وَضَرْبَةُ فضربه. Every strike was coming upon another strike. Every wound came upon another wound. Ibn Shurayk then came. He struck Aba Abdullah on his left shoulder. Hassin ibn Namir, he came and shot Aba Abdullah in his mouth. Sinan ibn Anas, he struck Aba Abdullah in the area of his collarbone. وحسينا ومظلوما ورماه الحسين في طرقه وضرب آخر أتى عاتقه وطعنة سنان في ترقوته ثم في موادي صدره. They struck Imam on his head, a spear, a sword, and arrow in his mouth. تقيل الشمار بلد قلي تقيل الشمار بلد قلي مالي غلوب العين هدلي يا ظالم يا ظالم خل يسي عصاه غمد له ومثل الموت راعه. Zainab is saying, leave my brother alone. Let him have at least another hour to live. Leave him alone. Zainab didn't know what was happening. So she went on top of a cliff. As she went on top of a cliff, the Maqtal says, the Imam says, فَوَضَعَتْ زَيْنَبٌ أَشْرَهَا عَلَى رَأْسِهَا. Zainab raised her hand. She put it on her head. She cried out, Ya Muhammada, Ya Abata, Ya Aliya, Ya Ja'fara, Ya Hamza. Here is Hussein in the open slain in Karbala. Then she cried out, I wish the heavens had fallen upon the earth. I wish the mountains had crushed the valley. She was near Aba Abdullah as Umar ibn Sa'ad came close to him. Then Zainab cried out. She looked at Umar ibn Sa'ad. She said to him, Waylaka ya Umar, Waylaka ya Umar ibn Sa'ad, Luqtalu Abi Abdullah wa anta taradu ilayya. Ya Umar ibn Sa'ad, woe unto you. Do you just watch while Aba Abdullah is being killed, while he is being surrounded by enemies? Umar ibn Sa'ad, he looked away from him. He began to weep in some Maqtal until he said, Ihmilu ala warihu. Descend upon him and give him his beating. Finish him off. Zainab then cried out, Waylakum ala fikum Muslim. Is there not a Muslim amongst you? Nobody responded to her. The man would come towards him. Shimar bin Dal-Joshan came towards Aba Abdullah. Shimar bin Dal-Joshan, what relief did they give to Aba Abdullah? They didn't give him a glass of water. They never gave him any comfort. Instead they sent him Shimar bin Dal-Joshan. Shimar bin Dal-Joshan came to Aba Abdullah. Allahu Akbar. Shimar bin Dal-Joshan, Ya Imam al-Zaman, Ya Fatima al-Zahra, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ya Al-Hussain al-Mujtaba. Shimar bin Dal-Joshan, he comes towards your master. He comes towards Aba Abdullah. He kicks Aba Abdullah. He sits on the chest of Aba Abdullah. Aba Abdullah says to him, Ya Shimar, do you know whose chest you're sitting upon? He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, I know you are the son of Fatima, but I will still kill you. He takes out his dagger. He puts it on the head of Aba Abdullah. He stabs him 12 times. Ya Hussain, 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 Ya Sayyidi, Ya Mawlai, Ya Aba Abdullah. We are not there in Karbala, but remember the call of Aba Abdullah, saying, Ala al-Min Nasir Yansurna. Reply to him on this day, Labbaik Ya Hussain, 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 Labbaik Ya Hussain. Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Ya Hussain,
Hussain.
Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین شہید شہید الحسین دہائی دہائی خدا را دہائی یہ دشت بلا میں ہے کیسی تباہی بہایا ہے کس نے یہ خون محمد قیامت کے ڈھائی ہے کس نے الہی جوانوں بزرگوں کو مارا گیا ہے شہیدوں میں شامل ہے ننھا سپاہی حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین یا جشن برپا یوں اہل ہوس نے شہیدوں کے لاشوں پہ ڈنکے بجائے جلا ڈال آل محمد کے خیر سکینہ کے منہ پر تماچے مارے جو بیمار تھا اس کا بستر نہ چھوڑا نبی دادیوں پر بھی درے چڑھائے حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین اٹھی اپنے مرخد سے بنت محمد سیاہ شب کی چادر میں چہرہ چھپا کر گئی کربلا میں تو اس نے یہ دیکھا ہے بوسیدہ کرتے میں ایک لاش بے سر بدن سارا تیروں سے چلنی پڑا ہے لہو میں ہے ڈوبا ہوا سارا پہ کر حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین تڑپ کر وہ چلائی شبیر بیٹا لہو میں نہائے وہ سر بھی جدا ہے تبر کس نے مارے ہیں سارے بدن پر یہ تیروں پہ رکھا ہے کس نے جنازہ کہاں ہے میرا لال عباس بولو کہاں ہے میرا لال عباس بولو میں پوچھوں گی اس سے یہ کیسے ہوا ہے حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین صدا سن کے زہرا کی تھرائے غازی جدا تن سے سر تھا تو شانے کٹے تھے غم و یاس و حسرت میں مجروح و مستر کہے کیا کہ دریا کنارے پڑے تھے سوئے الخماب جو بی بی نے دیکھا وفاؤں کے ساحل پہ جھنڈے پڑے تھے حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین ادھر درد و غم کی ستائی تھی زینب جو وحشت کے جنگل میں حیدر بنی تھی کبھی خاک اڑاتی کبھی اشک پیتی جو کنبے کے پہرے پہ تنہا کھڑی تھی سکینہ کے سقا کو آواز دے کر غم شاہدی میں بکا کر رہی تھی حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین کبھی دل میں دیتی وہ ماں کو صدائیں کبھی رو کے کہتی کہ بابا کہاں ہو شہیدوں کا نوحہ تھا اس کے زباں پر ابد کس طرح سے کہ غم کا بیان ہو ہمیں بھی سعادت و نصرت کی حاصل خدا را ظہور امام زمان ہو حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین حسین الغریب الغریب الحسین حسین الشہید الشہید الحسین حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
کہتی تھی ماں خبر میت سے لپٹ کر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ہائے ہائے علی اکبر ارمان تا پہناؤں گی پوشاک شاہانی افسوس کے راسائے نہ تجھ کو یہ جوانی کہتی تھی ماں عمر میری اصل برکت علی اکبر علی اکبر اتنا تو ذرا تیرو تمہیں دولہا بنا لوں اتنا تو ذرا تیرو تمہیں دولہا بنا لوں بس ایک جھلک سحر کی صغرا کو دکھا لوں بے چین افتخار علی اکبر علی اکبر کہتی تھی ماں عمر میری اصل برکت علی اکبر علی اکبر ماں تیری جدائی میں بھلا کیسے جیے گی ماں تیری جدائی میں بھلا کیسے جیے گی مر جائے گی صغرا جو خبر تیرے سنے گی اب کیا کروں جی کر علی اکبر علی اکبر کہتی تھی ماں عمر میری اصل برکت علی اکبر علی اکبر تم ہچکیاں لے کے جو دم توڑ رہے ہو تم ہچکیاں لے کے جو دم توڑ رہے ہو موما سے ہمیشہ کے لیے موما سے ہمیشہ کے لیے موڑ رہے ہو کیوں روتے ہو علی اکبر کہتی تھی ماں عمر میری اصل برکت علی اکبر علی اکبر آئے جو ہمیں لوٹنے ہیں میں ستمگر ماں دے گی صدا علی اکبر علی اکبر چن گئے گی چادر علی اکبر علی اکبر کہتی تھی ماں عمر میری اصل برکت علی اکبر علی اکبر یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین مولا کے امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا کے امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا کے امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ عابد بیمار تھا وہ عابد بیمار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا چلنے سے جو لاچار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور شام کا بازار تھا اور مصطفیٰ کی بیٹیاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی شبیر کی وہ لاڈلی سینے پہ جو شاخ بلی سینے پہ جو شاخ بلی جس کی ابا بن جلی جس کی ہوا بننے چلی مقدمہ چونکے نشاں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین رو کر کہے قاسم کی ماں رو کر کہے قاسم کی ماں مارا گیا قاسم جوان مارا گیا قاسم جوان اے لال میں ڈھونڈوں کہاں اے لال میں ڈھونڈوں کہاں بے واقع تھا جو آسرا مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین قاسم جوان مارا گیا قاسم جوان مارا گیا پامال بھی لاشا ہوا پامال بھی لاشا ہوا شینے کیے ٹکڑے جمع شینے کیے ٹکڑے جمع روتی رہی قاسم کی ماں مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ عسکر بے شیر تھا وہ عسکر بے شیر تھا اور حرملہ کا تیر تھا اور حرملہ کا تیر تھا پیاسا گلا کیوں کرکٹا پیاسا گلا کیوں کرکٹا روئی زمین اور آسمان مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ زینب و کلثوم تھی وہ زینب و کلثوم تھی چادر سے جو محروم تھی چادر سے جو محروم تھی نہ محرموں کے درمیان نہ محرموں کے درمیان اور انتظار کی بیٹیا مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین پیاسے گلے خنجر چلے پیاسے گلے خنجر چلے چادر چینی خیمے جلے چادر چینی خیمے جلے عباس کے پرچم تلے عباس کے پرچم تلے رو کر کہے یہ بیبیا مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسن یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین وہ باوفا عباس تھا وہ باوفا عباس تھا پھوپھیوں کی ہستا پھوپھیوں کی جو راستا پانی ملا جو نہ پیا پانی ملا جو نہ پیا معصوم کا احساس تھا مولا حق امام یا حسین یا حسین مولا حق امام یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا